even some of the moves like, or I'm making right now in my business, like me 6 months ago, even a year ago, there's no way. There is no
Yeah.
way that I ever could have. And even through all of my struggle, like being able to look back and be like, oh my goodness, like it makes sense why I walked through that. Especially like with my gut issues that I dealt with for so long, walking through that, which is one of the hardest things I ever
Mm.
walked through in my life, where I literally almost had my large intestine removed, ended up becoming an entire mission in business, now
Yeah.
servicing over 300 people a month, helping them heal and get to the root cause of their health issues using functional medicine. And I'm so grateful.
Well, let's get started. I am so excited to finally have Rachel Scheer on the podcast. We've been trying to book this forever, and we're both so crazy busy. It is such an honor and a pleasure to have you here.
Moira, thank you for having me on your show. It is an honor. We had such an incredible time a few
Mhm.
months ago at the mastermind event, and
Yes.
just became such good friends after, just
Yeah.
bonding over business, nutrition, and fitness. So I'm
Yeah.
excited just to have a girl talk here today.
I know, I am too. And it is really cool. I just literally got goosebumps. Isn't that crazy? Like thinking about our connection. We were both asked to speak at a mastermind in Dallas, and we came into that and, had conversation there, but there was like something afterwards. There was a connection afterwards that kept going. And I feel like, and I told you this on a voice message not that long ago, like you're just one of those special people that like is so like-minded and in driven business-wise, but like passionate and obsessed, right? With health and wellness and all of that. And you are such a supporter of mine. I mean, I think it's rare to find those people that you can reach out to that are just going to be your cheerleaders and encouragers. And you've been that to me. So thank you.
Yeah, I think, the more you step into business, entrepreneurship, you could say health, fitness, like it's hard to find people
Yeah.
who are on a similar mission as you.
Yeah.
I know when I was getting really into fitness and bodybuilding, like I lost a ton of friends in the process. Um,
Yeah.
but I really think anytime you're up leveling in your life in some way, shape, or form, um, our friends either have to like support us in that
Mhm.
journey, or we have to find a new group of people. And it's never to say like, hey, we're no longer friends, I'm leaving you behind or any of that. But it is hard to find your people. And that's why I
Yeah.
love going to those mastermind events and where you
Mm.
and I just clicked so much right away, because it's like, okay, here's a woman who is, really, really dreaming big. She gets
Mhm.
it. Like the values are there. That's the same. And I just hope that everybody can find those types of people in their life, because
Yeah.
it's so rare. And the older and older I get, it's less about, the quantity of people I have in my life, but
Mhm.
more so about the quality. And having those four females in my life, I
Yeah.
think has played a massive, massive role in my success.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is rare to step into a room of business women, of successful women. And I think it's becoming more and more, prevalent, but it is really rare to have that instant, like, I see your level of success, you see my level of success, and we're like, what are you doing? That's so amazing. Like, da, da, da. And we're just sharing things with each other where it's usually somewhat of a competition, or just intimidation, really.
That's what I was about to say, not being intimidated by the
Mhm.
other woman. And I did a podcast on my show, Sheer Madness, a while back with actually one of my best friends. And we
Yeah.
talked about the 10 traits of an empowered woman.
Mm.
And one of those being, another woman's success being evidence of really what's possible, uh,
Goosebumps. Yes. Yes.
instead of just looking at it as competition. And I
Yeah.
think when women and people in general, right, like this isn't just like a female thing, but can really understand that, like, hey, this is evidence of what's possible. It
Yeah.
then opens so many doors. And also, the more you encourage other people to win, be successful, add value, that's like been one of the biggest things I've learned on my journey, is like add value to everybody instead of, hey, what can I get? What can you do for me?
Yeah.
Just trying to get all these free handouts, like that's
Yeah.
really the key to get to where you want to go. And it feels so much better in the long
Oh,
run. And I feel like sometimes, people have to kind of learn that the hard way, but it really is that, like, it's empowering other people, adding value as much as possible. It's the same thing in business too, if we think about it. Like my business, I believe, has been so successful because it's been so focused on the mission
Hmm.
and adding value, and money always follows value. Like I didn't do this
Yes.
because I cared anything about building, a multiple seven figure business like now I have today. That was a byproduct of the massive value that I was able to add to so many people's lives and the mission that I was on. And it's the same thing,
Mm,
I think, individually in entrepreneurship, but it's value, value, value always
yeah.
first.
Oh, I love that so much because I feel like you just said so much, and that being inspired by somebody else's success, and that opens up the possibilities for you. What people sometimes don't realize, especially when we talk about like be careful who you surround yourself with, put yourself in the right circles, sit at the right tables. A lot of times people are attempting to do that, but they're not doing the work on themselves, right? And like you can't make that shift to truly feeling like, oh my God, tell me more about that because that's possible. That inspires me. That fires me up. You can't get there unless you do the work on yourself first. And, very few people, I was talking about this today, actually, on an earlier podcast I recorded. It's like we consume information, we consume education, we consume knowledge, but we don't always do the daily practices that we have to do for the inside work in order to take that, knowledge and execute on it.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if you've heard this saying before or anybody who's listening, but your level of success is always going to be a byproduct of your level of personal development.
Amen,
Even
sister.
even some of the moves like or I'm making right now in my business, like me 6 months ago, even a year ago, there's no way. There is no
Yeah.
way that I ever could have. And even through all of my struggle, like being able to look back and be like, oh my goodness, like it makes sense why I walked through that because
Mhm.
I really had to step into the version of myself who's able to run
Yeah.
the business, who's able to serve this many people. And I think so often, we look at all of these struggles that we walk through of like, why is this happening to me? And I've been there before, especially like with my gut issues that I dealt with for so long. But walking through that, which is one of the hardest things I ever
Mm.
walked through in my life, where I literally almost had my large intestine removed, ended up becoming an entire mission in business, now
Yeah.
servicing over 300 people a month, helping them heal and get to the root cause of their health issues using functional medicine. And I'm so grateful for it.
Mm.
And it all has come down to like doing the work internally. And
Yes.
even now, after I've created that business, as I've continued to really work on myself, dive into my own healing. Oh my gosh, I'm covering boxes. Yeah, I don't even want to go into like stuff. I'm like, why do I do this? I remember even saying to my partner Aaron a while back, and just being like, I'm kind of tired of growing. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm always growing at like an
Yes.
expedited rate more than
Yes.
any other person in the world. But show me somebody who's self-made who ever had an easy life.
Mm. Absolutely. I know. And it's like we can take our greatest obstacles, our lowest points in our life, and turn them into gold if we can get to that place where we can say, how can I use this? How in the world is this a gift? And that's where that shift comes in, and going back to what you were saying about like becoming the person you need to be now to be able to handle the business that you have. I mean, think about just failure. Like we fail and make mistakes, and the more success you have, the bigger those blows get a lot of times. And I think back to me a couple years ago, I'm like, I never would have been able to handle that. If I had had that success back then, it would have taken me out in a heartbeat. But like now it's just, you just roll with the punches because of the person I've become.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
So I want to go ahead.
go ahead. I was just
This
gonna
is
say,
true girl talk.
yeah, I truly believe everything really happens for us instead of to
Mhm.
us. And I know it's so hard to see that when you're in the moment, like when you are really in the midst of struggling. Honestly, this morning, my body woke me up at 3 a.m. 3 a.m. here this morning, and I had a full day. I don't get done until later this evening. I'm like, I got a podcast lined up. I have some business stuff. I got a new client coming in. I have this like whole day of stuff. And old me, like this would put me in like the worst place ever. Like I
Yeah.
would really, really struggle. It'd be like the world is coming and crashing down. And now I get to this place of looking at it like it's a test day. I'm like, you know what? how
Mhm.
bad do I really want what I say I want? You know,
Yeah.
do I think that I'm going to be able to step into, creating an entire business mastermind here this next year while running my entire practice and not have days of poor sleep or
Mm,
waking up in the middle of
love
the
that.
night? Like that is kind of the struggle that,
That's what that's what you asked for,
yeah,
right?
we say yes to. So now, like, I have these days and I've reframed them in such a way where I'm like, all right, this is a test day, Rachel.
Yeah.
How bad do you really want it? You say that
Yeah.
this is what you want. And it's the coolest thing ever because when you really can release all of the inner resistance, and I say the inner resistance is all of the chatter that says,
Mhm.
don't do it, cancel what that did, what podcast that was, this is too hard. This could be with working out, saying, I don't feel like it. We all have those days. We all have what I call those
Yeah.
test days where we just don't feel like doing the work.
Yeah.
And it's in those days where we really get to show up and we really
Mm,
get to ask ourselves, like, do I only want this when it's easy and when it's
yeah.
convenient and when everything is all perfect? Or do I want it on the days where even there's a struggle? Because I think that's what also separates somebody who's, good and maybe
Yeah.
going to be successful from somebody who's really, really great.
Yes.
Somebody whose physical body you look at and you're like, holy shit, she's got a six pack out and she looks
Yeah.
amazing. There was probably a good amount of days where like she did not want to go to the gym.
Yeah.
She did not feel like it. So it's really acting in spite of those thoughts, feelings, moods, and emotions and taking control of our circumstances, or I should
Yes.
say, not letting our circumstances really take control over us in our life.
Oh, so good. So good. And I keep thinking because something magical happens when you and I get together.
Mhm.
It's like this just wealth of like inspiration and passion comes out. And like while you're talking, I keep putting myself in that position, right? Because I woke up later than I wanted to today. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to get my workout, that whole thing. And I was able to override that. And, it wasn't as big of and hard of a day as you're having today, but it's like I keep thinking to myself, like, this is what we train for. Like, this is what we've been training for. These are the days that we've been training for. And it's easy to put on in the training on the days where everything kind of goes somewhat smooth because it never goes perfectly. But these are the days that, just like you said, we're put to the test and can we rise? And yes, we will. And when you can tap into that, even just the question, right? Shift from the focus on the negative, the downward spiral, the poor me, the I've got so much going on to this is like, am I able to rise? Am I able to overcome? I will always answer yes, but it's not until I step into that question that I can take back my power, you know?
Yeah, we have to really get to that place of like, okay, I'm kind of hovering above the situation there.
Yeah.
And like, not saying that that resistance isn't going to come. Like, I woke up and I was like anxious, I was fatigued, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like all of those thoughts come over us. It's what we choose to really do with those thoughts. And
Yes.
what the meaning is we create, because meaning really is the catalyst to all of the decisions that we make in our life. I'm a big Tony
Mhm.
Robbins fan. I know you are too.
Same. Yes.
You talk
Obsessed.
so much about that, but it's really the meaning that we make, whether it's
Yeah.
through the big life events that we walk through, like me losing my health and my gut issues, whether it is, a poor night of sleep, whether it's
Mhm.
sleeping in and being like, oh my gosh, like I don't feel like I'm going to get everything done. We get to choose the meaning of what
Mhm.
we want to happen. And I'll also add, I think like that's where discipline is also super
Yes.
important. I have been doing an ice bath actually for the last 3 months. I got
Yes.
the plunge. We were talking about this on the phone about like
Yeah.
getting the cold plunge. And I remember the first time I got in a cold plunge, like I started to hyperventilate.
Yes.
Like I didn't know what to expect. And my body's reaction was like, get out right
Yep.
now. I could barely stay in there for a minute. And now I do it every single day, actually, sometimes multiple times per day. I call them like my little espressos where I'll do like a quick little jump in before I have a podcast or something,
Yeah.
something for home, and I like get a good wake up. But what's so interesting is the conversation that I have with myself when I'm in
Mm.
that ice bath and getting even the time before has completely shifted. Before it was
Yes.
something I loathed and I didn't want to do. And my body was like, get out, this sucks.
Mhm.
And now the conversation has really shifted to one, it's something that I look forward to, even though it's something that's difficult.
Yep.
But two, in the ice bath, I now try to change the inner dialogue to, okay, You want to do 3 minutes? Can you go 4? Can you go 4?
Yeah.
And it's the coolest thing because doing that, just in that small thing in my life, it's actually shifted the conversations in other
Yes.
areas of my life where there's other things I don't feel like doing. And again, the thought still kind of comes up right when I get in. I'm like, get out. But the shift the shift takes place much sooner
Much quicker.
than what it
Yeah.
used to be. And I see that domino effect. And I think that's really
Yes.
how we create that confidence and trust, even on the days where we're like, girl, this sucks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it comes down to discipline and it comes down to flexing that mental muscle like every single day. I can remember at one point saying I was working out with my husband and one of his good friends who is not a big worker outer, and he was kind of half-assing it. And I said something just in passing, like, come on, how you show up, how you show up in your workout's going to be how you show up the rest of the day. And he like totally rolled his eyes at me and we were laughing. But I'm like, I wanted to be like, I'm dead serious. Like, if you're cutting corners in one area, you're cutting corners in other areas. And being able to flex that muscle of mind control over your thoughts, over your experiences, over the world that's going on around you, that is something everybody has, but very few people practice it every day. And I can't, my ice bath is on its way. I cannot wait till it gets here.
I want to get a video of you getting in it the first time.
Oh my gosh. Well, I remember the first time I ever got in one, and it's like an experience you'll never forget, just like you shared. I was thinking, I was at a retreat and I was like, well, everybody's doing it. So, I'm not going to die. It can't be that hard. I don't hear people screaming. And it's because I love physiology in the body. Like, it was mind blowing to me what happened to my brain. I mean, it was as if I had slipped under the ice and I was going to die. Like, that's it. Instantaneously, I went full fight or flight, full hyperventilation, couldn't breathe, and totally unexpected. But then being able to, within, 60 seconds, breathe through that and stay in that. I mean, that gives you some power. That gives you some power. Yeah.
And to see that take place and to condition the mind in that way, like seriously, like that's gonna massively play a role in every single area. And for some people listening, that may be just like you getting in the gym on those days where you
Hmm.
don't feel like it. Sometimes it's like sending that email. You don't feel like sending that email. It's getting on that phone call. Like I can't do one more phone call. And it's
Yes.
like, okay, this is really what separates somebody who really actually wants it versus
Hmm.
someone who kind of sort of wants it,
Yeah.
but they really don't want to do the work when it's hard ultimately.
Yes. 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 Oh my gosh. So good. Okay. So I want to go back. We haven't even like started yet.
No, we just went right into it. It's so, yeah.
So good. So I want to know, like, how would you define your role with what you do with work today? And then I'd love to hear kind of, because I know there's a big story here, what led you into that work?
Yes. So for everybody who's listening, I didn't even really share a whole lot about my background, but I'm a functional medicine nutritionist. That's a mouthful. Functional medicine really just means root cause.
Mhm.
So I do extensive lab testing, looking at the gut microbiome, the hormones, thyroids, adrenals, micronutrients. I could keep going on and on and on. It's like 40 pages worth of labs. I get stool samples, I get the poo, I get the pee, I get the urine, I get pretty much every specimen from you. And I use that information to help understand what is off in the body. But instead of using medicine, I use lifestyle and food as medicine, and also,
Mhm.
mindset related healing modalities as well too. Um,
Yeah.
because if we think about it, most disease, and I consider disease to be dis-ease in the
Yes.
body, all of these are really brought on by lifestyle related issues.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I'd say the majority of them are. And our body is an interconnected system, not a random set of independent organs. And what I really experienced with a lot of my health issues was really what I call the band-aid approach, where I
Mhm.
went to a bunch of different physicians for my health issues. They gave me diagnoses based off of symptom clusters. This could be depression. This was IBS, for example. IBS is considered um, irritable bowel syndrome, but it's not a diagnosis. It's just saying, hey, you have irritable bowel syndrome.
Yeah.
It doesn't really say what the root cause is. So that's
Yeah.
exactly what functional medicine does. It says what is off and why is it off and what do we need to do to restore function.
Mm.
Now, getting into this line of work, I actually came from the fitness industry. I was a bodybuilder. Like early on, I just cared about looking good naked, having six pack abs, and no shame with that either. I think there's
Right.
nothing wrong with wanting to feel good about your body, wanting to be confident. But that was really kind of what I thought about when I thought of health. I had health in a box, go to the gym, lift heavy things, eat kind of sort of healthy most of the time, like count your macros, and then you'll be healthy. But if you think about it, why then do so many people suffer with their health?
Yeah.
We see people with a ton of different health issues who are doing those things, and especially their mental health.
Oh, yeah.
And for me, I competed in bodybuilding for 3 years. I was pushing my body, to the extreme. Bodybuilding isn't a healthy sport, I will say. We usually say,
Yeah.
the person who wins is probably the most unhealthy on
Yeah.
stage. Physically, what we're putting our body through from nutrition, it's just very restricted. But my diet was full of a lot of what I call diet foods, not really
Mm.
healthy foods. So they were still processed foods, artificial sweeteners in them, things that aren't so good for your gut, but they fit
Yeah.
into the macros. So I was able to stay lean and fit. And then, with the stress my body was under, and I think my diet, after 3 years into competing back to back, I started to get really, really sick.
Mm.
At first, I lost my menstrual cycle. I had very low thyroid, which is normal when you are at a very low metabolic place where you don't
Yeah.
have a lot of energy coming in and you're at very low percent body fat. But then I started to deal with a bunch of gut issues. And I'm not just talking about, hey, I got a little bit bloated here and there, some stomach
Right.
cramps. Like I started to deal with debilitating gut issues
Mm.
to the point where I would look 6 months pregnant at the end of every single day. And because I was so lean and had a six pack, I kind of looked like a Ninja Turtle. Um, um, but, I was in massive pain, and
Yeah.
I became very, very depressed
Mm.
because most of my life had been fitness and nutrition. I went to
Yeah.
Baylor for nutrition and dietetics. Before that, I was a gymnast and I was a dancer. So my whole life up until this point had been about what I thought was health and fitness.
Yeah.
And here I was with hormonal imbalances, thyroid issues, massive gut issues, looking bloated, dealing with depression. And I felt like I was literally betrayed by my body.
Yeah. And so out of control, I can imagine, because, I have a very similar background with like being a gymnast, being an athlete. And of course, not of course, but for me, eating disorders coming out of that, which is a lot of control. And you can control that for a while. It works for a while. And then, that switch is flipped and to experience somebody as type A and is driven and just even personality type as you and I, to be completely out of control is a really hard place to be.
Yeah, and it's not a coincidence that most people who are type A and perfectionistic also end up with a lot of gut issues. And I'll get into that here in a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but, kind of getting to rock bottom with a lot of my health issues. My gut issues became so severe where I could no longer even use the restroom anymore. I had to do an enema every single day. And Western medicine, gave me a bunch of different labels like IBS, you have depression. I was put on birth control, antidepressants. I was put on thyroid medications. I was put on prescription laxatives. And I continued to get worse and
I was
worse.
just going to say, I bet your body just got sicker and sicker with all of that.
I'm just getting even more sick. I went to the Mayo Clinic, they did, which is supposed to be like the best in the United States.
Yeah.
They ran genetic tests, everything, still nothing. And I was eventually sent to a colorectal surgeon at this point who said, hey,
Mm.
let's just cut out your entire large intestine. What
Oh
we'll
my
do is we'll
gosh.
sew the small intestine to your rectum. And this will get rid of the motility issue, which was the major constipation issue, because if you're not going to the bathroom every single day, that's really, really bad for your body.
Yeah.
And like I almost considered it because I was that miserable
Yeah.
where I was
Desperate.
I was
Mm.
desperate. So trust me when I say like I get like feeling that type of desperation. And I
Yeah.
feel like I will do anything to get better. Just tell me what to do. I'll take the
Yeah.
pill. like I get that desperation. And for me, I also felt like I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. I was like,
Right.
I am eating healthy. I'm into fitness. I'm going to the doctors. I'm doing all the tests.
Yeah. You're following directions from all the
Yeah,
experts.
like
Yeah.
I'm searching for answers here and I'm like willing to do the work, but I just didn't know what I needed to do.
Yeah.
Um, However, I will say in that moment, something came over me and
Mm,
I believe it was God. Yeah,
mm.
I'm a Christian as my faith background. And, he said to not get the surgery and that there was another way.
Wow.
So as I was obsessed, with about bodybuilding and fitness and nutrition, I pivoted that obsession to really healing my body. And I
Yeah.
spent the next year really learning everything that I could about the gut microbiome, and how the little microbes in our gut control everything.
Wow.
Hormones, thyroid, metabolism, to our brain function, the motility of food. I became certified in functional medicine,
How did that pivot start? I'm curious because like God kind of gives you this message, which I love. And, don't go through with the surgery. Did he kind of give you the message like look into gut health, or how did that even come up in your life and where did you start that journey?
I call it the knowing.
Yeah.
It's that
Ah,
knowing that
yes.
we have internally where we're like, this is not right. This is not the direction I need to go. And there's another direction. Now, I didn't really get it like, go into gut health, start learning and researching. But at that point, I felt like I was really failed, um, or Western medicine really failed me.
Yeah.
And my only option was to figure it out myself.
Mm,
So that's where I was like, okay, I'm gonna start learning everything about gut health. And I did have my degree in nutrition and dietetics, so
yeah.
I had a really good basis in nutrition. I was like, well, maybe with this base, I can kind of start to learn about gut health and how to heal the gut and about hormonal balance and all of these different areas. So I think experts are born really from a lot of their own pain in their life,
Yes.
and because otherwise I would have spent hours each day learning about gut health. I don't know anybody who would, right? But I had a personal connection with it. And for me,
Yeah.
it was, literally what I felt was healing my body, but also saving my life with where I was at.
Yeah.
I was at that much of a low point. Um, and as I really got into learning, I just learned how crucial our gut microbiome truly actually is. And I started to do these different protocols, elimination diets. Now, gut
Mm,
healing is very different than gut health. I always say gut healing is a short term specific protocol to try to
yeah.
bring the body back to homeostasis. So it's
Hmm.
usually a bit more restrictive diets, very therapeutic, key targeted supplements, versus gut health is something like that's more maintenance, long term, trying to build a healthy and a robust gut microbiome.
I love that.
I ended up getting into doing some functional medicine testing, which is very different than Western medicine testing, because Western medicine doesn't look at things like the bacteria in your gut. If you have intestinal permeability, it doesn't look at these different kind of connectors there. And as I dove into some of that testing, I had a ton of bacteria overgrowth in my
Mm,
gut, something called SIBO. So my gut was a wreck. And that allowed me to start doing some key targeted protocols. But what's interesting, for the next year, I would continue to kind of relapse and relapse, and I would get some progress, and then it would all come back again.
mm.
And that's where my healing really started to expand, because I was changing my diet. Like I pulled out the artificial sweeteners, I pulled out a lot of the things there, started to eat very much a real whole food diet. I had to pull back a bit on my exercise there. I was doing key targeted protocols for healing my gut, but I really started to dig deeper and like, where is all of this really coming from?
Hmm.
And I really started to learn that it was the place that I was coming from, my relationship that I had with myself.
Mm.
I was
It's
trying
so
to,
interesting because I just thought about something. It's like functional medicine. I'm a huge believer and fan of functional medicine. And it's like obviously functional medicine goes to the root cause. And so you can say the root cause is the gut health, right? It's not the depression, the this or the that. But then what's under the root cause of the root cause?
yeah, what
You
caused the
know?
gut to be off in the first place is really
Right.
the question we have to be asking.
Yeah.
I don't believe hormonal imbalances or gut issues are actually the true root cause. They're actually part of the symptom. Now, we need to
Mm,
have that information. We need to look at what is all off in the body and how it's interconnected. But when we say what is the true root cause, it is what caused these systems to become up. They don't just randomly come up. Now, I
Right.
have testing and seeing someone who has like a parasite or things like that. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
they caught something. Like there are environmental stressors that can play a role.
Yes.
But the other two big stressors are dietary stressors and then they're emotional stressors. And I feel like that
Mm,
emotional piece really isn't, accounted for a lot. And if we even look back at my journey of even what I've shared so far, there's always been this perfectionistic type A, really trying to hustle for my worthiness. I was trying to
yes.
shame myself to health. I was trying to shame myself to fitness. And
Yeah.
think about that, that's so backwards because we can't shame ourselves to health and we can't heal a body we don't love. And it
Yeah.
wasn't coming from a place of really actually loving myself. I was trying to get myself to this perfect body in order to
Hmm.
feel some kind of sense of worthiness. I didn't understand that at the time, but that's really where I was coming from. So it opened the door to really start to do a lot of that deep inner work, which is honestly that work never ends. Like I still do
Never
that
ends.
today, which is why it's healing with an ing at the end there. I don't
Yeah.
believe we get to a point where we're healed. Now I have healed my gut, and that's in a
Yeah.
better place, and a lot of the body physical stuff. But when it really comes to our heart and our soul, like we're always going to be healing. And I think healing
Mm,
is very much, kind of the same thing as growth too.
yeah.
Because when we're growing, like we just talked about at the beginning of the podcast, when we're up leveling in our life, what are we doing? You're overcoming limiting beliefs. We're healing certain parts of ourselves so we can step into this next version of ourselves who's able to take on all of these things, but also doing it from a place that is not through resistance, like I mentioned there.
Hmm.
I'm not saying that there's not hard days. There are definitely hard days, but it's really how you show up for yourself in those days and that conversation that you have with yourself. So kind of
Yeah.
bringing it back to the ice baths and waking up in the morning. And the reason why I do that, now is because I love myself too much not to.
Yes, yes. I feel like there is such a gap in understanding this because it's funny. We started out the podcast with like, show up, push through, ice baths, and now like people are listening, like, wait, but I thought now you're saying I need to like take care of myself and love myself and give myself grace. But I think people don't understand that sometimes, some days, the loving choice is to push yourself, is to get yourself in the ice bath, is to rise above. And some days, the loving choice is to give yourself grace and give yourself a break and not hold yourself to that standard. But people so often just want to know what's the right action? What am I supposed to do? And that's different every single day,
Yeah.
you know?
And that's why that relationship with ourself is so important because when you have a relationship with yourself, you're going to know the difference between the two. There are some days where the most loving thing I can do for myself is say, get your ass up, get in that ice bath,
Yes.
crush it in the gym, push through these calls. And that is actually the most loving thing I can do.
Yes.
But that's actually, believe it or not, coming from a place of self love. And there
Hmm.
are some days where, you know what, like the most loving thing is really saying, girl, you've been busting your ass, you got it. Just go for a walk today, relax,
Yeah.
and I believe they don't compete with each other. I
Right.
feel like we have this whole personal development space that just like do hard shit and do it no matter what,
Right.
get it done. And then we have, this other side too, where, it's more like on the feminine and going at ease and just
Yeah.
being. And I believe they don't compete with each other. They're really one of the same.
Yes.
And it all really comes down to what is again, the meaning that we're making out of everything that we're doing. I can be pushing myself to the extreme in fitness, but coming from a place of unworthiness. And guess what? The fruits of that are going to be burnout, exhaustion, gut issues,
Yes.
hormonal
Yes.
imbalances. But I could also have that a very different conversation with myself and say, you know what? Um, I love fitness. This is my therapy. I get in the gym every single day and I love what it does for me physically and mentally.
Hmm.
And I'm not doing it for anybody else or trying to prove anything, but I'm doing it because, I really do love myself. And that's my time
Yeah.
that I get with myself. The action is the exact same, but the
Yes.
meaning is so different. And that's why
Yeah.
it's not black and white. And that's the exact reason why, health isn't black and white. And it's not
Hmm.
just go to the gym and lift weights. And I think that's also what's massively missing in the fitness industry right now too.
Yeah. And it just goes back to what you said, that relationship with yourself. And I think when we talk about self-love, like people are almost paralyzed by that because they're like, I don't know how to do that. And I used to have a coach that used to always ask me in like our coaching session. She was like, well, how's that going to make you feel? And I think just asking that question, because using the example of like, should I get up and get in the ice bath and work out? Like, well, how is that going to make you feel? If you can answer that question, that's how you kind of get to know yourself, because it's like, actually, that would make me feel amazing and I'd be proud of myself and I'd feel accomplished. Well, that's probably the loving thing. But the next morning, it might be, how's that going to make you feel? And you're like exhausted, burnout, like at the end of my day, I'm just going to be falling apart. Well, then the answer is don't do it that day, and just that is truly a getting to know yourself conversation. And we are just so busy and going a million miles an hour that we don't know ourselves anymore. Or, did we ever really?
I love that. I love that question of asking yourself, like, how is this going to make me feel? Because it's really paying attention to what the fruits are, right? What we're going to,
Yeah.
what's the byproduct after?
Hmm.
Because there are many days where I'm physically tired and I go work out and I feel a million times better. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I did that.
Yes.
But no one really can answer that question for you. And
Yeah.
um, we when we want to have a good relationship, like with our significant other, with our friends, like we have to actually spend time and
Yes.
get to know that
I
person.
was just thinking the exact same thing.
And so many people, like they kind of wonder, like, why is this so difficult? And it's like, well, are you really one actually spending time with yourself?
Hmm.
Because most of us like space, like time with ourselves. Like, what do?
Right.
We
We're on our phones, we're watching Netflix. It's like we're not tuned into us at all.
we want to distract, like
Yeah.
blank space is like scary, right? We're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, what do I do with this? Let's fill up the space with TV, with our phones, with anything else. And it's really that time that we spend with ourselves where one, we can start to ask ourselves questions, really get to know ourselves, but
Hmm.
that's really where that relationship really can begin to blossom and grow. Like I'm introverted. I love my time with
Oh
myself.
my gosh, my husband always laughs. He's such like a touchy-feely lover, and he's like, "I swear you could just live on an island by yourself." I'm like, "I could."
It's so funny because that is literally the identical relationship with me and Aaron too. He's always like he's like a lover, like at the
Yeah. Yes.
and I'm the person who's like, okay, we're done touching.
Right. Same.
We're done.
Absolutely.
Too much touching.
Yes, yes, I totally agree. And I really want to challenge the audience, the people that are listening to this, to like just today, I'm a big believer in like, we all listen to podcasts, we all listen to this stuff, but like, are you doing? Are you taking anything from it and implementing it? And I'm going to challenge myself to like go for a walk today without a podcast in my ears. Without, because I'm a big believer in like time stacking and, doing things at the same time so you can be more efficient. But taking a walk, a 30-minute walk or an hour walk alone without your phone and without headphones is radically different than tuning in to the thing that's in your ears. I mean, and if we can just do more of that, right? Like we track certain behaviors, we've got our planners, we've got our schedule, but are you scheduling in not just, the massage or getting my nails done and kind of, because I think that's how we look at self-love or self-care, like, oh, well, I do these things. And it's like, no, it's just quiet time with yourself. And not to go back to this, but I remember thinking about this one time and hearing in a church sermon, like our relationship with God, Jesus, whatever, religion you are. And he was kind of challenging us on that because he's like, you fall in love with somebody, like when you fell in love with your spouse and you wanted to talk to them every single second of the day and you wanted to be with them and you couldn't wait to go on like date after date after date. Like it's time you had to get to know them. And he's like, yet we say that we want that with God and we come to church maybe 1 hour a week, and it really like opened my eyes to like our relationship with our creator and our relationship with ourself.
Yeah.
It's kind of mind blowing when you start thinking about it.
I remember on one of my coaching calls with one of the ladies I'm working with right now, and she asked me, she's like, "What do you think is the most important relationship?" Now she's my coach, she's not the opposite in this
Yeah.
case. And I didn't think about it at first, and I said self, And then she's like, well, yes, but first it's the relationship we have with God and then ourselves.
Mhm.
And then of course our significant other person and then kids, and everything thereafter.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that's so true because I know even for myself, like I used to be that person, as a Christian who like went to church every Sunday,
Mhm.
would read the Bible. So like physically I was going through the
Mhm.
actions, but I didn't really have a relationship. I
Yeah.
was trying to um, get to know God and really
Yeah.
try to cultivate that relationship. And that's really as I worked on that and building that relationship, the relationship with myself has
Mhm.
grown, and the relationship with, of course, my partner has grown
Yeah.
thereafter. So I think that's beautiful that you do bring that up.
Yeah. Oh, so powerful. Gosh, so good. Okay, we could talk for another hour and we won't.
It went way too fast.
Way too fast. Tell me this, where can people find you? Tell me a little bit more too, if you will, when we wrap up. What does the process look like when clients come to you or your practice? Like, what could they expect once they start to dig into your website, your work? What does that look like?
Yeah, I would have loved to like dive into specifically like the gut microbiome and the bacteria, and we'll have to talk about that in another podcast because I
Yes.
completely nerd out. All things that I know on gut health. But with my practice, Rachel Scheer Nutrition, and you can go to the website, rachelscheer.com. We really do an interview process for anybody that we work with. So we offer a free 30-minute call. It is coaching. So we're
Mhm.
coaching on everything really that we talked about today. But
Love
we
that.
do all of the functional medicine lab testing. So we're looking at your gut microbiome, your hormones, your thyroids, adrenals, your deficiencies, inflammation, your blood sugar, because we need to understand what is off in the body.
Yeah.
But we also really need to look at things like, what does your diet look like? What does your stress look like? What does your sleep look like? And really try to identify, why these things are off in the first place.
Yeah.
And with the coaching, what we do is we create customized functional medicine protocols to try to bring the body back to homeostasis. So that's updated on a month to month basis. But it's coaching. And this is where we really get to work through some of these things that are coming up because it's not just here's the perfect plan, now follow it.
Right.
Right? Oftentimes it's really kind of diving into this inner work that we get to do too. And I created this approach because really this is what I wish I had when
Yeah.
I was struggling so much with all of my own health issues. I wish I had this type of testing. I wish I had that person who truly cared, who would look at all the testing, look at my nutrition, look at my lifestyle, look at how I was like showing up and being like, okay, this is what is off. Here's probably a bit of why, and coach me through, yes, some of like the actual protocols that I needed to do,
Yeah.
but also really, walking with me along the way. And I think the
Yes.
most powerful piece of having somebody who really cares, who can
Yeah.
walk with you and really look at the full picture.
It's so key. I mean, you and I both massively successful in our careers. We both have coaches. Like everyone needs that, and a piece that you didn't even mention, but is obviously there when you have an ongoing relationship with somebody is accountability. I have gone to functional medicine doctors who I love, who are amazing, who have given me protocols, and I've walked out their office and done it for, maybe 2 or 3 weeks and then fallen off. But
Yeah.
because there's not that ongoing relationship for them to kind of just usher me back on track a little bit, check in with me, see what else is going on in my life, it just kind of falls apart. And what you're doing is radically different. I mean, I don't think I've even heard of any practice that does that. So that is amazing. Absolutely.
I like the combo of like life, nutrition, functional, all intertwined.
Yes.
That, yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And
That's so
on
awesome. And your podcast,
my
Sheer
podcast
Madness.
is Sheer Madness.
I love it.
It's all on health, fitness, functional medicine, mindset. And then you can follow me on Instagram. It's at Rachel Scheer with a C in the sheer. So it actually looks like Rachel's cheer, but it's Rachel
Oh,
Scheer.
yeah. 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 That does make sense. And anything big coming up?
Um, Always things happening in the
Yes.
works. I think the biggest thing is, here this next year is stepping into helping women who also want to create greater impact, income in their life and use their own story and pain and turn that into their purpose. And I think that's what's so cool, is you guys heard my story of everything that I did with my gut issues and that and creating a business out of it. But we're always evolving. And,
Mhm.
what I'm really passionate about ultimately is helping people realize their fullest potential. Whether
Yes.
that's on the healing side, whether that's on the business side. So, yeah, that's the next evolution that I'm stepping into.
That is amazing. And we will be working together in multiple capacities. I already know
Multiple
it.
ways. Yes.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Rachel, thank you so much for being here today. This conversation has filled my soul, as does every conversation with you. And we will absolutely, I'm holding you to it, have you back on so we can nerd out together about gut health.
Amazing. It's been an honor. Thank you, everybody.